I recently had a suggestion after my last devotional that I did on Facebook from a lady who listens to some of my messages, or she heard that devotional, and she wrote to me and said, why don't you do a series on commonly misunderstood or misapplied Bible verses? I thought that was an excellent idea because we are, as Christians, we are to handle the Word of God truthfully and rightly divide it. And so, especially in my time as a pastor, I used to hear well-meaning Christians quote the Bible but misapply what the Bible is saying in some of these common ways that I would like to go over. So I'm going to pick 10 commonly misunderstood or misapplied Bible verses that Christians will quote, and I'll give you the context of those verses and what they really mean. So I'd like to start this series of 10 with Matthew 18:20. Matthew 18:20 says, "For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I among them." And Christians will quote that all the time, Jesus saying, well, if you have 2 or 3 people, this is what they'll say. As long as there's 2 or 3 people, that's church, man, because Jesus said, wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am among them. And sometimes people will take that very literally in that, man, we need to find another person or 2 more people in order for Jesus to be among us or for us to be a church. There has to be at least 2 or 3 people. But that's not the meaning of the text, and that's not what Jesus is saying, as though if you're alone, he's not with you. No, when we're alone, he's with us. He's always with us. He tells his disciples, surely I am with you always. Whether they're alone or not doesn't matter. Whether there's 2 of them or not doesn't matter. Whether there's 2 or 3 of them doesn't matter. And so what is the meaning of this text in Matthew chapter 18, verse 20? Wherever 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there I am among them. Well, the context is so important. As I've said to so many of you who have heard me speak or heard me preach before, maybe my favorite saying is a text without a context is a pretext for a proof text. That is, we need to understand the context of any text we read. And of course, this especially applies to the Bible because the Bible's the most important book in the world. But it applies to anything we read. If you take anything out of context, you can make it say whatever you want. And so text is so important. So what is the context? Context is so important. So what is the context of Matthew 18:20? Well, it's referring to a believer who has a dispute with another believer. We learn in verse 15, if your brother sins against you, go and tell him his fault between you and him alone. If he listens to you, you have gained your brother. But if he does not listen, take 1 or 2 others along with you. So if there's one person, and then they take another person, how many is there? 2. Or if they take 2 more people, how many are there? 3, right? Okay. If he doesn't listen, take 1 or 2 others along with you, that every charge may be established by the evidence of 2 or 3 witnesses. There we see those words 2 and 3 again. If he refuses to listen to them, tell it to the church. And if he refuses to listen even to the church, let him be to you as a Gentile and a tax collector. Truly I say to you, whatever you bind on earth shall be bound in heaven, and whatever you loose on earth shall be loosed in heaven. That's another verse that I should probably cover in this series. What does binding and loosing mean? Let's just stick with this one for now. Again, I say to you, if 2 of you agree on earth about anything they ask, it will be done for them by my Father in heaven. For where 2 or 3 are gathered in my name, there am I among them. So the context of Matthew 18:20 is disputes between brothers or sisters in the church. And what Jesus is saying is that when there is a dispute, someone who's done something wrong to their brother, and their brother goes to them, and he says, hey, you wronged me, brother. You hurt me in some way. You sinned against me. Like you broke some command. You stole something from me, for instance. And that can't be worked out between those two guys. Then what the one who was offended is to do is he's to go get a witness to it, or two witnesses to it, and then bring that to the brother who sinned. And then if he doesn't listen, he brings it to the church. And if he doesn't listen, then he casts them out. And what Jesus is saying there then is that in these matters, in matters of church discipline, where the church agrees, where the church is gathered together, two or three witnesses to whatever offense has happened are saying, this offense happened, we saw it, we are the witnesses, we're Christians too, we saw this thing happen, this person hurt that person in that way. Jesus is saying that he ratifies the church's decision to carry out church discipline on that person. Wherever two or three are gathered in my name and they agree about the charge that is brought against a brother who is sinning, there I am to agree with them. And they're making the decision with my approval as the Lord of the church. The church can obviously make mistakes. That's happened before. And Jesus isn't saying that he stands with the church when the church makes mistakes. He's ratifying bad decisions. That's not what he's saying. What he's saying is that where there is a real offense, and there are witnesses to that offense, and the church gathers together, and the witnesses agree on those things, and then the church carries out church discipline and treats that person as a tax collector or as an unbeliever, Jesus says, I'm with you. I'm with you on that. The church is not alone in making that decision as though it were somehow autonomous from God. God is the one who ratifies the church's decision in these matters. And so that's a beautiful thing, Especially as a pastor, I've had to actually carry out church discipline before. And knowing that Jesus was with me and with the elders and with the witnesses was a great comfort to me. That, whoa, okay, because what we're doing is really serious, you know. I mean, people don't take the church seriously anymore, honestly. Especially now when so many churches aren't even meeting anymore. They don't take the church serious. But Jesus is saying that I'm with the church when the church is making difficult decisions, when they're doing so according to my way as I lay out in Matthew 18. I'm with them. I ratify that decision. So that's our first verse and our first mini 8-minute now, 8-minute and 17-second devotional. God be with you. I will make another one of these, Lord willing, tomorrow. We'll see you soon.